Sexuality and music make for strange bedfellows. Sex is a powerful marketing tool, and that's often why it's utilized so much in advertising, film, and entertainment. Music is rife with sexual innuendos and themes. It's practically inescapable. And back in the dinosaur days of cable TV, it was nearly impossible to turn on MTV without getting bombarded with music videos of rock dudes ogling over models in skimpy clothing. However, discovering great music also comes with finding cuts that are extremely relatable, with lyrics that we can translate to our own situations and experiences, especially in the queer community. In honor of Asexual Awareness Week, these are my top 10 asexual-friendly songs. Britpop was pretty much a boys' club until Elastica came along and became one of the few Britpop bands, aside from Blur and Oasis, to have a single take off and form a life of its own in the US. And Justine Frischmann's compelling voice and off-kilter cadence as she delivers the verses are just infectious, and when that refrain hits, it's so good.
Another heart has made the trade. Forget it.
Asexuals often feel like they are forcing their partners to make a trade-off, because sex is considered by many to be an innate part of human nature, and it's easy to interpret these lyrics as the moment when someone reveals that they are asexual, and that becomes an immediate deal breaker. Also, she describes a spade when talking about connection. So this is peak ace culture.
The other night I cried while thinking of having sex with you, not out of desire or shame, but some subconscious impulse to feel pain.
For me, Car Seat Headrest happens to be one of those few bands that comes every few decades and really speaks to the youth. Will Toledo's stream of consciousness style of confessional songwriting makes for a perfect illustration of someone who is afraid that they might not be comfortable with sexual activity, despite not having a problem with the act at all, which he illustrates in the line,
Honey, I'm cultured, very sex positive. What is this feeling? It ain't so positive.
In the midst of Will's rambling, he acknowledges that he has nothing to worry about. He's not performing a lobotomy on anybody. He's not going to war. It's only sex. So why does he feel such soul-crushing anxiety related to the act? A lot of what I feel like is wrong with our culture is there's so much social pressure surrounding the act of sex that it warps people's expectations of love and connection in ways that can be incredibly damaging. That's what I appreciate so much about the sex-positive lyric, because it acknowledges that challenging social norms around sex and sexual health, contrary to popular belief, means that asexuality and sex positivity are not mutually exclusive.
Come for me, come for me, come for me, come for me.
This is a personal favorite of mine. Bradford Cox's voice is incredibly soothing, and the juxtaposition of the levity and simple texture of the instrumentals and the song being sung in a major key with the crippling anxiety that the lyrics are laced with, describing Cox's desire to leave his own body, is brilliant. As Alan Feinberg wrote, Cox describes what would typically be a nightmare scenario, losing all freedom and senses, and paints it as a seductive fantasy.
I want to fade away.
Cox himself is asexual and gay, and is also challenging the dominant social hierarchy that puts people who haven't had sex before on the bottom, and in illustrating his fantasy of escaping his own body, he shows us that it's a prospect he's not afraid of. In fact, he welcomes it.
It's just that I fell in love with a war. Nobody told me it ended, and it left a pearl in my head.
Mitski is an incredibly prolific songwriter, with lyrics that compare an object normally associated with beauty, such as a pearl, to spiraling into never-ending toxicity, being emotionally unavailable in a relationship, may have been her version of the story when writing it. But it's also easy to interpret this as an ace anthem with lyrics that go,
Sorry, I don't want your touch. It's not that I don't want you.
These lyrics perfectly illustrate the struggle of somebody's orientation and their circumstances that constantly put them at war with themselves and their romantic partners. On this song, Lush's Miki Barenyi describes various scenarios at bars, clubs, beaches, and restaurants where men with inflated egos try to win her over, and she blatantly rejects them because she's met those types of men before. I'm mostly including this song because I think it's a lot of fun. It doesn't have many explicit ace themes that I would describe as specifically asexual or aromantic, but who doesn't love a smart woman rejecting an overzealous man?
Andromeda's a big wide open galaxy. Nothing in it for me except my heart that's lazy.
On a song that draws on mythology, astronomy, and wide open spaces like the ocean to serve as a metaphor for navigating the unknown, Natalie Merling of Weyes Blood perfectly illustrates the struggle of finding the right person for her, being a lot to ask, with lyrics that go,
Let me be. If you think you can save me, I dare you to try.
These lyrics remind me of what our culture being obsessed with sex and dating feels like, and the constant questioning. Who are you dating? When will you start dating? Why haven't you started dating? Why are you such a late bloomer? Oh, you're just naive. You'll get there eventually. You'll find somebody. Well, what if I don't want to? And why would that be such a terrible thing? Isn't it my right to lead my love life and sex life the way I want to?
You leave me dry. You leave me dry.
I feel like this is the most on-the-nose song on the list, and it needs no translating. PJ Harvey is the most powerful titan to ever sweep the rock scene, and you can't convince me otherwise. Her visceral, unapologetic lyrical skills and her ability to take on multiple voices is incredible, as well as her bravado and commanding stage presence. And of course, who doesn't love a good laugh, which this song does perfectly, in the best way, of course. It's pretty blatant commentary on the selfishness of male sexual gratification, which is still a massive problem and continues to be at the center of a lot of feminist conversations and theory, as it should. But it's fun to imagine this as a person discovering that maybe sex just isn't for her.
If only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places. Be running up that road, be running up that hill, be running up that building.
This is perhaps one of the most iconic songs about lovers, specifically of the opposite sex, not being able to comprehend one another's experiences because they don't understand what the other has to go through. This mirrors the struggle of being asexual and wanting to come to a mutual understanding with one's partner, but it can be very difficult. Unless partners could miraculously swap bodies and minds for a day, understanding takes effort. This song is such a beautiful example of universally relatable songwriting. Ian Curtis repeating the phrase, Love, love will tear us apart again 4 times over can be applied to any situation. This song, as well as the Buzzcocks' Ever Fallen in Love with Someone You Shouldn't Have, are excellent examples of the situation being just vague enough but also just specific enough to cut deep, because heartbreak is the worst, no matter what situation you're in.
Would you like to express your sex without stress? Would you like to discover physical conversations of different kinds?
As the nerdy, sex-positive queer that I am, this song is pretty much perfect, with lyrics that go,
What ought to be the so-called normality? It doesn't match the mythology you see at home on the TV screen, or read it in a magazine.
Leslie Woods explains how sex is pretty much the epicenter of capitalism. Everything relies on sex. Storytelling, songwriting, TV, selling a product, you can't escape it. It's everywhere. But imagine being able to be alleviated from all these damaging social pressures surrounding sex. How about something else, like holding hands or having stimulating conversations? Those are my top 10 asexual anthems. I hope you all enjoyed, and happy Ace Awareness Week!